You're listening to episode 12 of the Fed and Fearless podcast. On today's episode, I have with me my client, Molly, who finally learned how to rest so her body could heal. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Laura Schoenfeld. I'm a registered dietitian and coach trained in functional medicine with a passion for helping women just like you ditch perfectionism and use food, fitness, and self-care to fuel your bigger God-given purpose. I believe that it's possible to achieve your biggest life-changing goals without the frustration, obsession, or negative self-talk that so many women subject themselves to every day. All you need are the right tools, the right mindset, and the faith to turn your dreams into reality. I'm here to guide you along the way. The truth is that you are so much more than a body, and I'm on a mission to help you change the way you think and act at a core beliefs level so you can transform your physical, mental, and spiritual health from the inside out. Are you ready to become fed and fearless in your pursuit of a healthy, meaningful life? Welcome to the Fed and Fearless podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fed and Fearless podcast. I'm Laura Schoenfeld, and I'm so excited to have another case study to share with you today. Today, we're going to be talking with my client, Molly, who is, as she describes it, a type 3 Enneagram achiever gone overboard. Molly's innate personality led her to love fitness, the constant opportunity to set and achieve goals. When she was young, this led to a healthy love for sports. But when she left sports and dove into the fitness world at 18, this became an unhealthy relationship. She prioritized her workouts over her social life, relationships, and emotional well-being. And it didn't help that she was a personal trainer and group fitness instructor because she had, quote unquote, so much love and passion for what she did. Her obsession of achievement of how hard and how much exercise she could do, combined with how she was restricting her food, led to amenorrhea, social isolation, and a constant chase for worthiness. After 16 straight months of not having a period, she finally broke down and realized that she was not truly healthy. It was at that point she found my platform and was drawn to working with me because of my faith-based approach. My programs have empowered Molly towards a path of spiritual growth and emotional, physical, and mental healing. Molly says that healing is a constant process, but she is continuing to break the chains of health perfectionism and live in freedom. I cannot wait for you to hear Molly's story, so without further ado, here is Molly. All right, everybody. Well, I am so excited to introduce you to our guest today. She is my youngest client in my Fed and Fearless coaching program, and she's been a total rock star and has had so many amazing changes and experiences through the program, and it's been a joy to watch. So I am so excited to welcome Molly to the podcast today. How are you, Molly?
I'm awesome. Super excited to be on Fed and Fearless today, Laura.
Yay. Well, I'm so excited you're here and very grateful for your time because I know that you have a lot of awesome things to share with the women that are listening, and you have a really inspiring story that I can't wait to hear more about. So what I'd love to start with is just like a kind of who are you, get to know you kind of question, because a lot of my interviewees are people that are business owners, and people can go Google them and stuff, but you are just a normal person that, has a normal job, and not that you're not extraordinary as a person, but you don't exactly have like a brand name that you're developing or anything. So, who are you, and what would you like to share about yourself with our listeners?
Yeah. So hi, everyone. My name is Molly Rose. I actually live in the same place as Laura, Raleigh, North Carolina. Born and raised here in North Carolina. I think a simple way to describe me is a lover of Jesus, lattes, Lululemon, group fitness, and fluffy gluten-free muffins. I recently graduated from NC State. While I was in school at NC State, I thought I was going to have a professional career in group fitness. But a year after graduation, and I now am a recruiter for a software communications company. So a lot's happened in my life in the past year. But some of my favorite things include movement, lattes, just exploring, being out and about with family and friends.
Nice. Well, next time we hang out, I will make sure we find a good spot for a latte. Especially Raleigh's got a lot of good options. So now I want to kind of back up and talk to you a little bit more about what life was like before you joined the program, because I remember, I can't remember if it was like Instagram or some kind of social media that I got a message from you about the program. And I honestly wasn't sure if you were going to join because you were young. And my experience has been that young women tend to get a little shy about investing in themselves. So when you had reached out to me about getting help around this issue, I was like, all right, well, we'll see what happens. Because I think you were still in college at that time. Is that right?
I was. Yeah. It was about a year ago. So I was in my last semester at State.
So when you reached out to me, like I said, I was like, well, she seems really interested. And so we'll see what happens. And so I want to kind of take you back to that time where you reached out and were having some challenges that you needed help with. So what was your life like back then? And what were you specifically struggling with that led you to me?
Yeah. So a lot of my struggles that revolved around overtraining and orthorexia is kind of my way of describing it. It started towards the tail end of high school, but really heightened in my time at school at State. As much as I had an amazing college experience, I look back and there really were some deep struggles that I wasn't digging into. I feel my passion was wellness and fitness, and that's what my studies revolved around. But where I really shined early in school was as a group fitness instructor and personal trainer. And those jobs did bring me so much joy, and I grew a lot as a person and have no regrets from it. But when I had such a passion for understanding the human body and then the leading of the group fitness classes, I really became obsessive with working out and, teaching multiple classes a day sometimes and still wanting to do my own workouts and being okay with not being social if I was at the gym, whether that was teaching a class or doing my own thing. And as much as I genuinely loved fitness and my friends and family knew that, I think they all kind of wondered and deep down knew, is it really all love that drives Molly to do all this movement? And it was what drove a portion of it, but I think it also became an obsession. And one way as I've kind of done self-work and dug into this is being that I'm an Enneagram 3 or someone that's always seeking achievement. And I found through whether it was achieving a workout or achieving doing more by teaching a class, that was how I was weighing my success all through school. I think when you're in that college environment, you're in an environment that's teaching you to chase success. Not that that's a bad thing, but for someone that was already very success driven, I felt I needed to find that every single day. And fitness, being in that environment is what gave me that opportunity. And I think when I started realizing, oh my goodness, kind of what is this trap I'm living in of hooked to the addiction, if you will, of workouts, of fitness. And so last year, in the fall, was doing my yoga teacher training program, which was something I went into all with professional and physical intentions. I had several other group fitness certifications, but wanted to start teaching yoga. I had enjoyed incorporating more yoga into my routine, and yoga allowed me to experience something that no other movement had before. And I think it was just God creating a space for me to sit in his stillness where I was told to lay in child's pose, not have any stimulus around, and just the way you hear God's voice when you sit in that position of surrender. And all throughout my yoga teacher training program, I think is where the idea of vulnerability and getting real with myself was really first taught to me. And I think going through that whole journey is where I really broke on the inside, and God intervened of showing me, Molly, like the way you've gotten caught up with the obsession around workouts is really starting to take a toll on your body. I had been ignoring the signals of not getting a period, of having low body fat, of being so cold because my body fat wasn't high enough to keep myself warm. And then also being so restrictive with my diet as well. So I think throughout the yoga teacher training experience, which ironically was on my obsessive fitness kick, is what really brought me to realize, wow, this isn't healthy and I need to get help.
So just out of curiosity, because I'm trying to remember if you and I ever talked about this, what was your routine like with your exercise leading up to this point?
Yeah, so all through school, I was someone that 5-7 workouts a week at least. And it was, I think when you're around the fitness environment and teaching group fitness, you see people working out every day, sometimes multiple times a day, and you start to normalize that in your head. So for me, it was never enough just to teach a class. I always had to do my own workouts too, because, I wasn't going full percent when I was teaching the class. So there's several days in school where I was doing double workouts a day, and weeks when I wouldn't take rest, and just telling myself, living in these lies that you need to do, and never really giving my body that rest.
Well, and what's a little bit different about your story than some of the other women that I've spoke to about this is that concept of the fitness being a sense of achievement for you. Would you say that's the main reason why you were exercising that frequently?
For sure. I think, I have struggled with some physical motivations as well as, I want to look a certain way, but that was never my main driver. I think the achievement comes from, like I said, my Enneagram, but then also growing up an athlete. So being taught by coaches from a young age of when you push it, like that's what's applauded. And I found that same, I think, little victory sense and being in the fitness environment of getting thrilled by keeping a new lowest pace on a run, or getting my highest power score yet in flywheel, is just using those as the victories that made me, quote unquote, have a great day.
And so if you didn't have that, or like you had, I don't know if you ever took a day off, but if you were forced to take a day off, you felt like the day just wasn't valuable.
Oh, you don't deserve to eat all of this if you're not going to work out, and really using that to value my worth.
How did this show up in the way that you were choosing how to eat?
Yeah, I would say for showing up in how I eat, it was almost a similar concept of achievement or winning, if you will. Something I had struggled a little bit with food sensitivity. And so I already had in the back of my head almost this fear of food. I was diagnosed allergic to gluten and then also dairy sensitive. So became paranoid of eating out, or really any food I didn't have control over for a while, is just because, is it safe? Is it going to make me feel terrible? And then I think that combined with my desire for achievement everywhere, is I would feel like I was doing great if I had kale and avocado and foods that were considered clean. Whereas if I ate something like bread or a cupcake, I was like, oh no, like this is tearing away from my success. Or if I'm going to eat this, then I'm going to need to go this much harder tomorrow. Well, I only did this workout today, so I'm only going to let myself eat this. So just really using it based on achievement and then value.
Yeah, I remember when we first started together, you just using that word clean eating a lot and saying like, is it clean? Or like, that kind of thing. And I think it sounds like a benign word, but it can definitely become something that triggers a lot of people to be really obsessive about like, what does clean even mean? And, you know, even on Instagram, I know there's a lot of like clean eating hashtags and clean eating recipes and that kind of thing. And I think it started out innocently enough wanting to help people choose better quality food, but people who took it to an extreme and was like, I can only eat stuff that's clean. And then like, what does clean actually mean? Getting really narrow as far as the definition of clean food is concerned. I feel like that is a big part of what affected your food choices at that time. Would you agree?
For sure. I think it was just an obsession with eating clean and eating almost to the point of nothing that was normal, if you will. It just had to be so pure that I wasn't allowing myself any freedom around my diet.
And I don't know if this is what your experience was, but something I've heard from a lot of other women is that eating that way actually gave them this sense of, like, in a weird way, feeling like they were better than other people, or like almost like a false superiority, because, you know, obviously you're judging yourself a ton if you don't do what you think you should do. But then when you are eating, quote unquote, really healthy or really clean, it's like you almost feel like, oh, this makes me special, or this makes me a better person or something. Did you ever experience that?
Yeah, that's definitely something I relate to. And I think having food allergies from a younger age, it was, you know, Molly always had something different at Thanksgiving meal, at meals out with friends. And I was used to this sense of attention around food for me. And then as I got older and into the fitness scene and people knew that I studied nutrition and fitness, I almost felt this weight of expectation for what Molly's going to eat is supposed to be healthy, and Molly's going to get the salad with the chicken and all the greens while we might get tacos. And I think when it was all built up in my head of this is my reputation, so this is what I have to continue to live up to, and almost did give me that sense of superiority of, oh, I'm going to eat what's different and what's best in quote.
Well, and I think it can make you feel like it's a element of your identity and what makes you special to eat like that. So, you know, you're putting this pressure on yourself, and even people are starting to reflect that to you. Like, oh, Molly's the healthy one of the group. Molly's the fit one. Like, Molly eats the salads when we go out. And it can feel like, whether or not you want to keep that identity, that it's almost being reinforced by your friends, even when it's not intentional or they don't realize that that's actually not good.
Right. It just almost became in my head what I thought was always expected of me.
So I feel like, so at that time you were experiencing a lot of shifts around the way you were thinking about your health and your body and your exercise routine through that yoga certification program. And you were starting to realize that these habits and these beliefs that you had actually weren't good for you and really were harming you. And then somehow, I forget how we came into each other's world. Like I said, I'm pretty sure you reached out via social media, but I can't guarantee that. I don't have like a screenshot or anything. I remember we talked a little bit, and like I said, I was like, well, I don't know if is she going to join? I wasn't totally sure because, like I said, you were young and it was a big investment for you. So what was your experience going through the decision about whether or not to invest in group coaching?
Yeah, so I think for a while, my parents had known, you know, Molly's behaviors, they really aren't 100% healthy. And then I kind of started to do that self-work and dive into, you know what, there's really something I need to do to make my body healthy. I realized I've malnourished, overtraining for a while now. So my mom kind of softly started to suggest, you know, you should work with a nutritionist. And I started working with a traditional nutritionist actually through college, just because it was free as a student, and then reduced costs for consultations. And honestly, went a few times and then realized, you know what, this is a lot more than just my thoughts around not my thoughts around food, but this is a lot more than just what I'm eating. Like this is a whole life approach right now, that my mindset isn't right. So being in the process of the yoga program, I was started to just build an interest in holistic wellness coaching. So it honestly just started Googling some things in Raleigh, and don't remember exactly how I found you, but when I saw that you had a faith-based approach, I knew that that was going to be the right fit for me, and that was the way. If I was going to truly heal, it was going to be allowing God to intervene in the process. And after looking at your site, I was like, you know what? Like, I really align with the chasing perfectionism and the achievement through my diet and exercise. One of my main problems being amenorrhea, and seeing that getting your period back all naturally was one of your specialties, was definitely something that drew me in. At the same time, my doctor had been telling me to get on birth control, and that was something I wanted to avoid. So I think a lot of those signals are what brought me to your program specifically. And I'll be honest that, at the time I was 20, and looking at the weight of those programs and individual coachings was heavy. But I realized that it was a big part of me that was missing and that I needed to heal. And so what I ended up doing was asking for money for Christmas to invest in the coaching program. And I think that's something that's definitely made me value the work and the value that I've gotten from doing the coaching program is that it was an investment that carried a lot. It was something that was as a sacrifice of a Christmas gift of, say, an Apple Watch or clothes, a vacation, whatever else I might have asked for, but instead asked for some money and then put a little bit of my working money into this as well. So really having to make that sacrifice is what I think then made me say, okay, well, I want to get something out of this. So in return, invest in this self-work and utilizing all the resources that your program offered me.
Well, I will say that that's a very mature way of approaching things that most 20-year-olds probably aren't used to doing. I'm sure, if you told your friends about that, they'd be like, what? So that's why when you approached me, I was like, I know that she would be a perfect fit for this. And I also have talked to a lot of 20-year-olds. So I kind of know, I shouldn't say I know what to expect, but I don't have a lot of high hopes when I talk to a 20-year-old about investing in coaching because, again, most women at that age, you might not have even spent $100 on yourself, let alone like $1,000. So, it is a big decision. And I think the maturity that it required to go and ask for that instead of getting something more fun or getting something more exciting, just I think really speaks to who you are and your ability to see what really mattered and what was important to you. And, the Apple Watch will be here next year. So Christmas is right around the corner. Okay, so you're in the program and you made this big decision. You got support from your family to invest in it. And you're like, I'm going to make this work. No matter what happens, I'm going to do the work and I'm going to get value from this. So, and this was at the time of this recording, 10 plus months ago. Since you joined, I know you've been one of our most active participants, which has been amazing. And I've loved getting to hang out with you in real life since you are local to me. What were some of the biggest lessons that you learned through the work that you did in the program?
Yeah, so I think the biggest lesson that first pops to mind overall is when I first signed up, I'm someone that's very gung-ho and all in. And I was like, yes, finally, I'm going to get healthy. I'm cutting down my workouts. I'm going to eat more. I'm going to get my period back. And then slowly starting to feel oh my goodness, this is going to change my day-to-day life so much. Such a mindset shift of, okay, so I said I'm only going to do 4 workouts this week. oh my goodness, that means I'm only going to do, at the time in my head being, so I'm only going to do this, this, and this, that's it. And then, so really having to fall into what felt so uncomfortable at that time of changing my daily patterns, I think just realizing, oh my God, this is so hard to make these changes when your habits have been so different for such a long time. I think that's one of the biggest things I would just say from the beginning. And so when you realize how hard that process is going to be, and then you start to dive into it and you start to see the growth that happens from making those uncomfortable changes. But then there's days when you fall back into your old habits because it is what's comfortable and you aren't starting to see as much success. So I think really grasping that healing is a constant journey. I've been doing the work for about 10 months now, and there's still days where it feels uncomfortable. For example, the other day when I was taking a rest day, I was starting to have thoughts of beating myself up again for, do you really deserve a day off? And I think realizing that you're going to have to nourish your soul and pray to God about this healing process day in and day out to really is what the commitment is going to take, is because the thoughts I was living in for such a long time are never going to be something that just goes away. I think that's a way the enemy will always come and try and tempt me. But it's something that with the commitment and challenging yourself to do what's uncomfortable because it's going to have so much value is why you have to keep going each day.
And it's so interesting because, like you said, your action with the program was to, as an example, exercise less. So one could say like you're actually doing less work, or people like me who's like, I tend to be a little bit on the lazy end lately with exercise because I've kind of learned that I don't have to do that much to stay in shape. And I'm like, well, why would I do more if I don't need to? So the idea of doing 4 days a week to me sounds like, actually, that's a lot. That sounds like a lot. So what I was going to say is for you, it wasn't so much that you had to add this extra effort or that you had to do something that was like physically harder for you.
And I think for me, being that achiever mindset, the idea of doing less tears me down more than the idea of doing more. I love that. It's a thrill. It's a challenge. But when you kind of say, no, Molly, like you can't do that, is where I almost break down.
Well, and I think that's the part that a lot of people don't realize is that even though the steps that you can take to get that result, I don't think are specifically difficult. It's not like part of the steps were to go run a marathon every day, which I'm sure if that had been the step, you would have been like, yeah, I can do that. But like physically, it's not demanding to exercise less or to, I guess the eating more piece for you, probably there was some physical challenges there, but like, it's not something that is outrageous in terms of the actual change when we look at it from like an objective perspective.
Right. Not a lot of actions, but a lot of mindset.
Right. And I think that's the part that people don't realize is like the reason why that this program is set up the way that it is because, if it was as simple as me just like giving you a meal plan and like giving you an exercise plan, which maybe was what your original nutritionist did. Like maybe she was like, here's how to eat. And like, and I don't know what she did, but I've seen this before where it's like people they want just like a quick fix. And so what you discovered is that, even though the exercise change could have been easy, like if it was just like, oh, I just have to take a couple days out, like no problem. You thought going in like this is really obvious. And then when you started to do it, that's when all that resistance and challenge comes in because you're really fighting old habits. So that's where having that level of commitment that you had where it was like, I'm going to make this work no matter what, because not only have I invested in this, but also my family has invested in this. And I know that this has to be successful. I really think that that's what carried you through those times where it could have been a lot easier for you to just go back to what you were doing. What do you think about that?
Definitely. And I think something that you kind of opened up in saying that is accountability and relationships. So yes, I had opened up the space to my family and some friends of, hey, this is what kind of the sick habits I've been living in. I really need prayer and support, accountability around this, of checking in with me, of am I doing this self-work? But I think something also in terms of accountability is for me doing the group members program is that I was in a safe space and had this community of other women that were on similar journeys. And so, there's a Facebook and there's a master class of other women posting how they're healing and the steps they're taking on their journey. And I think that's something that also motivated me and kept me going, is because I saw other women going through the same process and the same journey. And when they're sharing their little wins that they're having, it makes you want to crave finding, doing what's hard so that you can feel that same sense of true worth that comes from doing the uncomfortable, changing your habits day in and day out, is because you're all finding this same sense of purpose together.
Yeah. And I imagine that I'm sure there's not a lot of people that you are, or that are in your life that are struggling with. And I mean, I don't know, I shouldn't say this because if you're in the fitness community, you probably see it a lot, but like most people out there are talking about needing to exercise more and needing to like go on a diet and needing to lose weight. And so it may make you feel like there's something wrong with you if you aren't doing that, or if that's like the opposite of what you're trying to do.
For sure. And I think that's something that, for me, I did used to be in the fitness culture all the time. And as much as I loved that, when you're constantly around the talk of gung ho, like doing workouts is great. And that's what you're complimenting people for. And everyone sharing kind of, oh, I'm not doing Whole30. Being around those conversations made me feel like, oh, well, that's what you should do. And also a lot of times gave me this feeling of, I don't want to speak out and share the struggles that I'm actually dealing with right now, because people aren't going to like me for having the opposite problem. And that's something, I think the general population right now praises dieting and exercising more. And yes, that's great. But I think I've also learned that there's a really fragile spot for people that are in situations like me, because that constant culture we hear can be really damaging.
Well, and it actually, I would say it doesn't even matter what your body looks like or functions like, because even if somebody's in a larger body, hearing other people constantly praising each other for dieting and for exercising really hard and going after those like more intense goals, it does start to feel like you're the weird one if you're reducing your exercise or if you're purposefully eating more. And, I think even some of the women in the program that were at larger body sizes that they were doing that same work, it was like, it felt even more like they were doing something wrong because, if they have body fat to lose, then they should be calorie restricting, that kind of thing. So I definitely think the reason why I think the group was so important, because I could have just, worked with you one-on-one and I'm sure you would have gotten a lot of value from that. But I think the group is where you get to see everybody else that's going on that journey with you. And it's normalized. And it's like, hey, actually, I'm not a weirdo for feeling like this. I'm not like, broken or something's wrong with me. This is something that happens to other women. I was mentioning to Natalie when I was interviewing her that 90% of women are dissatisfied with their bodies. So there's probably a lot more people out there that are actually having that same struggle that you're having, but most of them are not either willing to change, or maybe they don't even realize that they need to change. And so I bet it was a really great experience to be around other women, even virtually being around other women that you're like, hey, we actually are all on the same page here in some way, shape, or form. And we're all going through this together. And I'm not this like odd duck that, is doing the opposite of what everybody else is doing.
For sure. It definitely made me feel like I was a part of something, which is, I think, in human nature is something we all crave naturally.
So any other lessons that you learned? Because I think yes, the work was really hard, but I know that you were committed to it and there's a lot of successes that you've had. So are there any other lessons that you can say you've taken away from this?
I would say one of the biggest lessons that I've taken away is just kind of in general overall approach to life, and specifically my health is, well, two things. Is I think something that really brought me to crack and do the work and invest in my coaching program with you was I was taken through a 10-year vision last year as part of work training at Lululemon. And when I thought about my life and what I wanted it to be painted like 10 years from then, so then at the time being 20, thinking about when I was 30 is, I wanted to have a family that was centered around fellowship. I wanted just to be able to play soccer in the yard with kids and be able to cook a meal with my family, to have the energy to do whatever they needed, to be a friend, to be a wife. And I think doing that exercise of thinking about what I wanted my life to be like in 10 years is a way God really showed up and showed me, oh my goodness, do you want to be constantly thinking about your workouts and what you're eating every day of your life? Because that's what your life's going to look like if you don't start to do the work and make these changes. So I think that kind of long-term perspective and thinking about what I really want in my life to be painted and made of was a big lesson and growing point for me. And something that goes along with that is I think a year ago, my approach was probably body, mind, spirit. So almost putting my workouts first in life, and then mind of after I was able to accomplish physically and through my diet is then creating my mindset and then allowing my spirit, God, and my faith to come into my life. And through all this work, I've realized, no, the order is actually completely opposite. Spirit first in my devotion. And that's how, from my connection with God and my time in devotion, is where I'm going to then start to shape my mindset. And mindset, I think also, into goals. How am I going to spend my day? From there, with my excess energy, I will move from a place of joy for my body, not out of what can I accomplish. So I think kind of that reverse of the order and spirit, mind, body has been kind of a mantra I've gone back to throughout my healing process of rechecking in with myself of, okay, what are we putting first here?
That's awesome. And it's so interesting because I see this happen a lot where people are so focused on fixing their bodies that it's like all they think about. They spend all their time listening to health podcasts, and they're at the gym or they're, Googling what's wrong with them. And it's like, I'm not saying that, obviously I have a podcast. Like, I'm not saying don't listen to health podcasts whatsoever, but I think it's really important to kind of look at your weekly calendar and say, like, what am I putting the most emphasis on? And what is my highest priority? And if you're like, I won't miss a workout and maybe I'll skip my morning devotion to get to that workout, then that's showing you where your priorities are. And I think your priorities can tell you a lot about the things that are fueling you and fueling your identity. So I love hearing that you've gotten back to a place where your spiritual health and your relationship with God is at the forefront, and then your mental health and your physical health is flowing from that. Now, actually, I'd love to hear from you. I know we've talked about some of the changes that you've experienced, but what are some of the health changes that you experienced as a part of going through this program and making these tough changes?
Yeah, so I think one of the things I've already hit on is being comfortable cutting back workouts and working out at a normal amount these days, and being comfortable taking a rest day, and even to the point of when I'm in the motions of a group fitness class or on a run, that my mindset isn't focused on how hard am I going? Is my heart rate high enough right now? Am I doing the most challenging level? I think that's been one of the greatest blessings is witnessing that change. And secondly, and I think diet of being able to be at a place where I am eating with freedom and able to eat intuitively. One of the biggest being socially eating is being able to go out to a restaurant with friends and not looking at the menu before deciding what's going to be the healthiest thing I can get, making sure it's allergen friendly, is just going, looking at the menu. What looks like it's going to taste best to me based on my mood right now has been another huge shift in just similarity and finding freedom day by day of, what sounds good, what's going to fuel my body and give me the nutrients I need, and not be thinking about how many calories or the macronutrients it may have or how it's going to fuel my movement. And then I think another change that I've seen would also be kind of like we hit on in the last one, is just how I'm prioritizing my schedule. Is where in the past I may have pushed myself to get a morning workout in and then been so exhausted at the end of the day that I wouldn't have gone to Bible study that night. So looking ahead on my weeks, on my days, to be able to say, this is how I'm going to truly live my life.
So do you feel like you've been able to kind of put your focus more on the relationships and community in your life as opposed to being so focused on your body and your accomplishments?
For sure. As I've kind of gone through this self-work and healing process, as I've realized how socially isolated I had made myself in the past. And I think that's something that, really does break my heart for myself, is because I had no idea at the time that I was pushing so many people out and away. But I think that as I've been able to heal, I've found this sense of openness to others, and that when I'm not spending all of this energy obsessing over my diet and my fitness, is that is energy I'm able to use towards loving others, which is ultimately what God designed me to do, to be in relationship, be in community, and be a part of his greater mission.
Mm-hmm. That's so awesome. Any other physical benefits that you've experienced from getting more rest and getting more diversity in your diet?
I would say energy is probably one of the biggest things, is not realizing how my body was so starved of eating normally, and that I was constantly in survival mode. And when you fuel your body, you're able to thrive. And so I think having the energy, that's also, I used to struggle a lot with sleep. And now that I'm fueling my body properly and not in overtraining syndrome, is my sleep life is infinitely times more. So I think energy and sleep are definitely huge physical changes I've seen as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like the sleep piece, a lot of times people don't even realize how much their exercise and diet routine can affect that. And it's like, oh, I didn't realize the reason I couldn't fall asleep or stay asleep is because I was exercising too much or I wasn't eating enough before bed, that kind of thing. So like I said, I mean, there's just been so many great changes in your life since you went through this process. And I know you're still working through things, and, nobody expects anyone to be like 100% perfectly healed after, 10 months is a long time. And I know you've been putting a lot of work in, but you also had 20 years of experience doing things differently. So considering like 20 years versus 10 months, you've done a ton and you've made a ton of progress. So definitely wanted to give you a little, what's the word? I don't want to say pat on the back because that's going to make your Enneagram 3 get too excited, but just giving you some kudos for putting that work in and seeing the results. So now I know that you and I have talked a little bit about the purpose piece, because when you went to school, maybe you thought you were going to get into group fitness, or that was like going to be your career to go into health and fitness and wellness, that kind of thing. And I know there's been some changes in that plan, even if it's, whether it's temporary, whether it's permanent, you're in a different spot than maybe you would have expected a year ago. So what do you believe is your purpose for this season of life that you're currently in?
Yeah, for sure. So I was throughout school really visioning this career and as a master group fitness instructor or running a group fitness program. And my yoga teacher training experience was something really impactful on me. And I think as I've moved away from the fitness field, I've wondered, how am I going to live my practice or find that same sense of fulfillment that being the group fitness instructor gave me. And I think it all goes back to, I truly believe one of the spiritual gifts the Lord has blessed me with is being the encourager. I think that's what made me shine in the group fitness environment, is because as the Enneagram 3 or the achiever, I love goal setting. So I love creating relationships with others and really digging into what is their vision, what are the goals they want to accomplishment, and then being that cheerleader that gets them there and holding the space for them to make their way towards progress and towards their vision. And that's what my career now in recruiting allows me to do is, from the company standpoint, as well as from the candidate standpoint, is what are the goals on both ends and where are we going to find the best match? So I really want to, throughout my career, continue to use my gift of encouragement and goal setting, because I do feel those are things the Lord has blessed me with. And I also think that's what makes me a good friend, a good family member, a good daughter of, in my relationships and in community, is the one that's able to always be the bright light and help others along their journey. I'm the eternal optimist. And I think, so my purpose in life, just being the encourager, being the cheerleader, the bright light, whether that's career, in the workplace, or simply just in my friendships.
Awesome. I love that. And this might be redundant since I feel like you might have already answered this, but what impact do you hope to have on the world around you?
I would say it probably goes back to what I just said about being the encourager, being the light. I think, what comes to mind is it's not what you say to people, but it's the way you made people feel. And I always want to be the person that makes other people feel encouraged in who they are, because I think that's the greatest impact I've appreciated. Mentors, friends, family, whoever may had, even the way God looks at me is He looks at me as someone that has ability, someone that's going to be able to have an impact. And so that's why I want to be that encourager to everyone else, is to let them know that I have hope in you, that you can do this, because that's the greatest gift my God has given me, is that He has hope in me.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's so sweet, Molly. And I just feel like what's really cool about this whole process that you've gone through is I don't think that encourager or cheerleader piece of your personality was necessarily hidden before. Like, I always felt like you were very positive, and it wasn't like the stuff that you were dealing with in the past prevented you from having a positive impact on the world around you. But I do wonder, was it limited, or was it something that you couldn't do as much of that because you had so much, like you had packed your schedule so full of the fitness stuff, or the, I can't go to a restaurant with my friend that needs to talk about her goals because they don't have the salad that I want there. So you don't seem like a different person as far as your desire to make an impact on others. But I do think just the ability that you have now to make an impact is so much broader because there's so much more time to just do that.
For sure. And that's something a friend actually came to me and said a few weeks ago. And something I read was, when you're a taskmaster with yourself, the people around you can feel that and sense that. And that was something, when I read it, was really convicting to me in the way that I am guilty of living in the past, of being so tasked with myself. And people can feel that almost tightness when they're around you. And my friend had said to me, Molly, you've become just so much warmer. And I think that was a really great way of describing kind of the process that I've gone through in personal healing the past year, is just becoming more warm and open to the world and the people around me.
Awesome. I love it. And just to kind of go back to that decision, because at the end of the day, there was a lot of decisions that you made that led you to this point today where you could say that you feel freedom and you're able to have that impact on others, and you're able to express that warmth that I think was always inside of you, but like just couldn't come out fully because of the way that you were treating yourself. There was a lot of decisions that led up to that point to getting to this place. And you've constantly made decisions that probably felt scary and probably felt like a big change and probably felt even opposite of what you thought was maybe what you were supposed to be doing. So what would you say to somebody who is trying to make a decision about what to do next and is considering investing money, investing time, investing energy, investing effort into experiencing this kind of transformation? How would you encourage them to take that risk and take that leap?
For sure. I think the biggest thing for me was just getting to a point of, I'm not going to fix myself. I had realized my habits were tearing me down, and had started to say, okay, well, I'm going to eat more and exercise less, but I just couldn't do it. So I think making that commitment to almost, hey, raising my hand, I need help, I need support, and then being open to the resources and community that was given to me from that decision. So I think that would be my greatest advice to anyone out there that's going through some of the same struggles that I still fall into some days today and dealt with so much in the past. Is it's so much better when you open up to the community that's around you and you're not in this fight alone. And when you get to the point of where you're able to say, you know what, I'm not going to hide this and keep burying this down. I'm going to move on and open up to my God, my higher power, and the community around me to find healing, is where the true healing really does start.
I love it. And like you said, it is a decision. And I always think it's interesting, like, especially in the Christian community, so many people are like, oh, well, God will like make this happen for me. And they don't realize, like, God can't force you to change, right? I mean, I guess can't's not the right word. He could do whatever he wants, but he's most likely not going to just like hit you with a lightning bolt and all of a sudden you're a different person. You have to decide that this is something that's valuable and worthwhile to you. And there are sacrifices that you may have to make to experience that change. And I really think, so many of the Christian people that I've talked to that are like, oh, well, I'm just going to pray about it. And, not that prayer is bad, but it's like, you can't just pray about it and not actually do different things or like make changes to the behavior, or, when challenges come up, you have to take different actions. So I think it's really great to hear from someone who is so faith-based, but also recognizes the value of taking responsibility for the situation that they're in and is willing to partner with God as opposed to just like wait for God to change stuff.
Yeah, I think that's been definitely one of my biggest lessons through all of this.
Now, do you have any final advice or words of wisdom for the women that are listening today?
I think just the way you finish kind of recapping with that is what I would want to finish on, is just be bold. Don't be afraid to make the big changes, because it is bold action, and you just have to trust that God is going to guide you to a life that is more fulfilling for Him and for you when you're willing to take those leaps of faith and really do what feels like your world is getting shaken and give up control, because that's what's going to allow you to heal and to find this road of recovery that is so much more than the habits I was living in the past.
I love it. I feel like you're one of the most inspiring, I think 21, right? You're 21 now, 21-year-olds. I feel like I was so much less mature than you are. So I'm like thinking back to myself at 20 or 21. I'm like, man, I think it took me a good extra like 5 to 10 years to get to that level of wisdom. So
I'm still learning a lot.
Well, you're still young. I mean, like you said, your 10-year vision is you'll be my age in 10 years. So I think you're already way ahead of the curve. So I have one more question for you. And this one was one I didn't prepare you for. You're like, oh no. What do you think makes a person more than a body?
I think what makes a person more than a body is, it's going to be something I said earlier, but the way they make other people feel. You know, there's nothing about the way someone makes you feel than when you think about the way someone made you feel, you never think about what they look like. You think about the words they said to you, about the actions they did for you, about the sacrifices they made for you. That's how someone makes you feel. And that's the real impact we have on one another. So I think when you view it from that standpoint, is you really see it's who God made someone on the inside. That is who they are, their identity, not their body on the outside.
I love it. You did really well. I feel like I was afraid I was going to put you on the spot, but you had a great, and not that there would be a wrong response, but you had a very eloquent and beautiful response to that. So I appreciate that. Well, Molly, it has been so fun hanging out with you and getting to see everything that's happened in your life. And like I said, I know you're just barely scratching the surface of everything that you're capable of and all the changes that you're going to continue to experience as you take these steps every day. So I'm just so blessed to have you in my life and get to watch all the progress that you're making and get to have you here on this podcast, sharing your story with the women that I know are going to benefit so much from it. So thank you. I have loved spending this time with you.
Thank you, Laura. It's been so much fun to come on and get to share a little bit of my story today. Fed and Fearless has definitely been an incredible impact on my life. And thank you to everyone out there for tuning in.
Awesome. Well, yes, you stole my thunder. I was going to say thank you to all of you who hung out with us. I really hope that Molly's story was inspiring to you and you can see yourself or a little bit of your story in hers. And it'll help you know that you're not alone in this and that there is more for you than just a life of gym obsession and body focus. So I hope you all have a great rest of your week and we will catch you next time on the Fed and Fearless podcast. Take care, everybody. Hey everybody, Laura Schoenfeld here again. I just wanted to pop back in and let you know that we still have an opportunity to participate in my brand new free 5-day Christian body confidence challenge called Faith Over Fear. The truth is, health is simply a tool to pursue your purpose. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you were created for so much more than fear and frustration around food and fitness. And deep down, you want to believe it when God says that you are awesomely and wonderfully made. And I'd love to show you how you can experience true freedom in your health and incredible purpose for your life. I want you to find a brand new perspective on how to approach health from a faith-based perspective so you can live the purpose-driven life that you were created for. And that's exactly what you'll learn in this new 5-day Body Confidence Challenge. In this free challenge, you'll learn how to replace negative self-talk with healthy spiritual truths so you can honor God with the way that you care for your body. Go to fedandfearless.com/challenge to register. Technically, we've already started, but if you jump in before the end of this week, you can still access the challenge and participate. So go to fedandfearless.com/challenge. And I will see you there.